Well, I reported today that the Jays are trying to get an extension done with Vladimir Guerrero Jr.
FT senior insider Ken Rosenthal with us on the Christian Walker signing for the Houston Astros. Well, Ken, that was quick. I like decisiveness, and that's what the Astros just showed us this week.
Well, when Arenado blocked the trade the other day, there was no guarantee that they were going to stay in the mix for him. There's been no guarantee that they were going to sign Alex Bregman. So this way, you guys went through it. Christian Walker at first, Isaac Paredes at third. It's a different Astros team. No Kyle Tucker, no Bregman, most likely. And it's just going to have a different look than we've seen in recent years. Those guys, Tucker and Bregman, were absolute fixtures with the Astros. Homegrown guys, first round draft picks, and now it appears Tucker already is gone and Bregman will be too.
Is this a domino effect from the Juan Soto deal? Because I laid this out, I just said it. You follow the trail better than I do, but Juan signs. Crap, we can't sign Tucker because he's going to be worth possibly $400 million, $350 million. I don't know if Bregman's going to take it. We have to pivot, and it all became a domino effect of, hey, this is who we ended up with.
Eric, that would seem to be part of it. I never thought Bregman was going to sign there because Jim Crane, the owner, has not been into monster deals. It's not something that he has been advocating or even done in his tenure as owner. Now, they've had extremely successful teams. We all know that, but they have not gone, I don't know, beyond 150 or whatever Altuve's deal is right now. So I never expected Bregman to be back there, even though, of course, he's a fixture. And then, yes, the Soto deal definitely influenced the Tucker talks, I would say, because once that number was out there, the Astros knew, if they didn't know it already, how difficult it would be to re-sign Tucker. And then they had to come to grips with, all right, we might not have Kyle Tucker as a free agent or after next year because he's going to be a free agent. And that's what this led to.
Ken, what do you think's the aftermath from here? So it sounded like this could have been a good fit for a team like the Yankees. Also, it sounded like the Astros could have been a potential fit for Pete Alonso. So what do you think about the rest of the shakeup here with the first base market? Tons of names on that market.
It's really interesting, Scott. And I reported last night that the Yankees are increasingly likely to look at a more inexpensive option than Alonso or Walker. And I believe you guys mentioned it earlier. And I wrote this too. The qualifying offer and the potential loss of 2 more draft picks was a factor here. Remember, they lost their second and fifth highest picks for Max Fried. If they had signed Walker or if they signed Alonso, they would also lose their third and sixth highest picks. You're essentially blowing up your draft. Now, you're the Yankees. You might do that for 1 year, but it's not something that teams really like to do at all. They hate losing draft picks because, of course, that's the access or the way to access young talent. So that was a factor. Price seems to be a factor as well. They want to go cheaper at that position, and there are multiple options. Let's face it, you can look at the first base free agent market beyond Alonso. It's Justin Turner, it's Paul Goldschmidt, it's Carlos Santana, it's Josh Bell. All of these options, there are trade possibilities as well. Josh Naylor is one, and you have others. So they can kind of survey the landscape, whether it's Yandy Diaz in a trade or Josh Naylor in a trade or Nathaniel Lowe in a trade, or more likely, in my estimation, one of the free agents that you can get for roughly the same price you'd be paying one of the trade guys without giving up players. So they're not giving up players if they sign one of those guys. They're not giving up draft picks by avoiding Alonso and Walker, and that seems to be the way they're going to go. So the next question becomes, where does Alonso end up? And I agree with what Eric was just saying during the bonus segment. All signs still point toward the Mets. Might not be the deal that he totally wants, but where is the market for him beyond the Mets? Now, I'm sure there are teams interested kicking the tires. They always do. But I don't expect the Yankees to do it. It seems to me that the most logical place, as it has been all along, is back at Citi Field.
Ken, if we survey the first base landscape, there's this huge monster dude up in Toronto who plays first base and is going to be a free agent after next year. Can you kind of hit on where he's at with the Jays right now, and also how all of this first base, Yankees aren't spending on first base, so now all of a sudden it looks like one less suitor, maybe Vlad then signs an extension, how this is all playing into it?
Well, I reported today that the Jays are trying to get an extension done with Vladimir Guerrero Jr. And it shouldn't be a surprise. They want him. They want to keep him long term. He loves Toronto, and they clearly need him as their foundation going forward. The question, again, in the wake of the Soto signing, is what's the price going to be? And if Juan Soto is at 765 and Vlad Guerrero Jr. is going to be a free agent only a year older, entering his age 27 season instead of 26, is he half of Juan Soto, around 400 million? I would think he wants to be more than half of Juan Soto. So maybe the number starts with a 5. And are the Jays willing to do that? Is that something that they would entertain? I don't know. We've heard all offseason that they are desperate to do something big. Their front office is potentially in trouble here. Mark Shapiro, club president, 1 more year on his contract. Ross Atkins, the general manager, 2 more years. They're coming off a dismal season, last place in the AL East. They need to do some things. Signing Vlad Jr., the way I wrote it, would be the starting point, the foundation, the centerpiece of what you want to do going forward. And we'll see if it gets done, but obviously they have to know, and Vlad's camp knows as well, that the Yankees are out there, most likely are not going to go long-term at first base. Now, after signing the players that they have, maybe they won't do it next year either. But at the same time, the Jays know all this. They can see the landscape, not just this offseason, but next offseason and beyond. And they can see that Vladimir Guerrero Jr. is going to command a high price. We all know that now.
Do you think this is a playoffs or bust situation for Toronto right now? And also, I'd like to mention that they've been in on a lot of people, and I'm sure they're trying, but they actually really haven't done anything yet this offseason, and they were the worst team in the division last year.
They made the Jimenez trade, and
Right.
That was no small thing. They brought in a guy who is a platinum glove winner at second base, can shift over to shortstop if they trade or lose Bichette as a free agent. So that's one thing that they have done. But you're right, Scott. And what's the next move? They've been in on Burns. They have been in to some degree on Bregman. A reunion with Bregman and Springer, maybe that's the plan. I don't know. And you're right. They've had a hard time getting players to come there. I don't really know why. The only reason in my mind would be not the city or the country at this point. It would be the state of the team and the weak farm system, the potential of Guerrero and both him and Bichette leaving. That would be the worrisome part of me as a free agent, not Toronto, one of the great cities of the world, or anything to do with Canada. But I'm looking at that team if I'm a player right now and I'm saying, I'm not so sure where they're going forward. Remember, as I just said too, their front office might be in flux. So there are a lot of questions there if you're a player.
All right, well, third base is also locked up in another mecca of baseball in Sacramento. The Gio Urshela signing. Is that the type of signings we're going to see for the rest of the way out so they can get all their spending money spent?
I believe so, yes. And I pause there because I recall reporting at some point, I don't remember, September, August, whatever, that their plan was to be at 130 million to 150 million in the ramp-up years going to Vegas. Now, maybe they weren't going to get there exactly this year, but that was the range I had heard and reported. They're not going to get to 130 this year. They will get to about 100, 110 perhaps, but it's going to be really interesting to see how John Fisher handles this going forward. Gio Urshela is a nice player, and he's a kind of guy, the kind of veteran you want on a team like that. He's stable. He plays good defense. He'll give you what he can offensively. He's not young anymore, of course, but good on a team. Severino deal was their big splash. The Jeffrey Springs trade was a good trade for them as well, even though they gave up a guy, Joe Boyle, that some people think can really take off. It's just that the promise of spending there and the promise of doing bigger things, that has again been delayed. And I will believe John Fisher will spend when I see him spend. I will believe they are in Vegas when I see them in Vegas. They're a team that I just hold great skepticism about. And gee, I wonder why.
Would you love, wrapped up in a gift, a beautiful big free agent signing during Christmas, or wait till after the new year and everybody just take a silent period and allow everybody to enjoy this holiday season?
Well, first of all, I will be taking a silent period. So People can do whatever the heck they want. I'll be off. I only take 2 weeks off a year. It's Christmas week, and there's a week in August after the deadline. And that's the way the sport works. It's always going. I expect there will be deals next week, maybe even big deals. But I have to stop at some point. They might not stop, but I'm going to stop at some point. So you ask about a quiet week. There used to be a time, even before you guys played, where there was that kind of quiet period. And it was the Christmas holiday where teams did nothing. But now that isn't the case anymore. And baseball doesn't enforce anything. And I don't know that they necessarily need to. But I recall when Theo Epstein and Jed Hoyer went to Kurt Schilling's house Thanksgiving that one year, 2000 or so, 2002, 3, whatever it was, when they convinced him to trade to Boston. And that to me kind of changed everything. That's when people started saying, well, the holidays don't matter anymore. Bad idea, bad trend. And I blame Theo and Jed.
Yeah, I remember that story. And big respect, Ken. Yeah, you deserve the time off. Everyone will live. They'll get their news right when you're back. Okay, so question for you about two other signings that are now being overshadowed since we talked about Walker a lot. But in the past 24 hours, Max Kepler signs with the Phillies. Patrick Sandoval signs with the Boston Red Sox. Thoughts on moves there and what the teams are doing?
Kepler's kind of interesting. I wouldn't have anticipated the Phillies going to him. Really good defender. Didn't have a good year last year. A guy that has great promise, but has never really fulfilled that promise. He is certainly a talented guy, and the Phillies are looking to change things up. I don't know that he's going to be the main thing they do. It was an interesting signing to me, maybe even a little bit curious. I don't see him as a Phillies guy necessarily, but the defense alone, that will help them because their outfield defense at times is problematic. We all know that. Sandoval is really interesting. $18.25 million for 2 years. He's coming off a TJ, and he's not going to be available till the second half, most likely. So you're paying for the second year. We've seen deals like this in the past. Brandon Woodruff with the Brewers, same thing. Brandon Woodruff this year will be in the second year of this kind of deal, and the Brewers expect him to be part of their rotation. The interesting part of Sandoval to me is that the Angels could have had him and kept him for much less. It would have been something like $5.5 million in arbitration this year. Then with him not pitching much this year, maybe $6 million next year. And they chose not to do that. That's their choice. I get it. But it seems curious to me that the Red Sox valued him at a level so much higher than the Angels did. And the Angels knew him. Sandoval's a good pitcher. We all know that when healthy. So I like this move for the Red Sox. I still believe they need one more starter, one more healthy starter to go with Crochet and the others to start the season. But this is a move for both this season, late in the season, and in 26.
Yeah, big win for the player to get a lot more money.
Yes.
Because you would think if the name was floated around, the team would have traded for him. But I guess maybe the plans changed for the Red Sox. And they're like, all right, now he's a free agent. We don't have to give anything up for him. But I'll finish with this, kind of circling back to the top story of the day, but just trying to hit the Cardinals, Nolan Arenado side of this. You know, there's a lot of great reporting in The Athletic this week about the whole situation. The part that I have a hard time understanding is how he wants to wait. It was early in the offseason. He wants to see how the market plays out. I'm like, wait, is he a free agent or is he being traded? I know his agent, Joel Wolf, is involved in talking to teams, or they are saying it's okay for him to do so. But for me, I'm like, all right, Ken, he's not going to the Dodgers. Clearly, they're not interested in him. They've got a guy at third base. He must have a list of 2 or 3 other teams that are in his mind that were way above the Astros that he's saying, I'm going to risk waiting for that. Otherwise, I'll stay in St. Louis.
That's what he did. And he lost an option today with Walker likely going to Houston. That closes off Houston for him. And that's the risk he took when he decided he didn't want to go to Houston this early in the offseason or at this stage of the offseason. I understand it. If you've got other places in mind, you've got the no trade clause, you can effectively determine your destination. That's fine. But teams are not going to necessarily wait for you. And the Astros clearly didn't wait for him. Maybe he ends up with a team that is on his preferred list. Maybe it's Boston. Maybe it's the Yankees. I have no idea. But you're right, Scott. The options now are diminished because the Dodgers was never really going to be an option for him. And the Astros certainly will not be if they get Walker. So he took that risk, and now he's going to have to deal with the consequences. And the problem is, Let's say his teams, the ones he wants to go to, don't want him. And maybe they go in other directions, or they have other players that they want to use in those spots, or that spot, third base. Then it's looking like he might end up back in St. Louis, which is not what he wants. It's not what the team wants. It would not be a good outcome.
Yeah, they basically had a deal done, and they were going to take on a lot of money, which is a factor too, because the ownership, group has to approve it, and they're not trying to eat all of Nolan Arenado's deals. So yeah, there were just so many signs here that pointed to a team that's been in the playoffs 8 straight years, but it made a few million more bucks too with the no state income tax. But anyway, that's his
St.
choice.
Louis was
Doesn't want to go there.
All but $15 million of the remaining $64 million that he was owed by St. Louis. That was a big chunk. That was a $40-something million saving, and it's not going to happen now. So at least it won't happen with the Astros. Now, can they get that deal with another team? We'll see. There's not as much leverage. There's not as many opportunities now.
Could be a topic next week on Fair Territory. Ken, thank you very much. We'll see you next week.
Thanks, guys.
Hey, everybody. Be sure to like and subscribe for more content.
We're back here every weekday, all year long, so do not miss an episode.
The videos are coming in all day. Here's another video you might enjoy.
Baseball the way it should be covered.